Awesome. Hi, everybody. Once again, thanks for coming to the session today. If you're not with us and you'll be viewing this at a later time, we're also glad to welcome you to our fourth new advisor development program session. It's all going to be about honors in action and how to get started. Let me share my screen. I didn't do that yet. Hold on. Here we go. There we go. Awesome. So Honors in Action 101, getting started. A lot of the times as an advisor, one of the things that we don't really know how to do, especially when we're new, is just to get started, and that's half the battle. And once we figure out how to get started, then we start to branch out in different sort of ways and, look at things a little differently and learn along with our students, right? And I think you're really at a benefit if this is your first time working with Honors in Action, to be able to sit through this. I wish I had this many, many years ago when we started with this. To have this session, this one-on-one, not one-on-one, but this session where we can learn more on how to get started and how to build your confidence with Honors in Action, because it is such a pivotal program, part of our programming at Phi Theta Kappa, right? It's, we start out, we are a scholarly honor society, and we start out with that, and no better than Honors in Action to have that as the tool to provide opportunities for students to increase their development as leaders, and also with scholarly activities. So my name is Patty Van Adder. I'm the Chapter Outreach and Development Coordinator for Phi Theta Kappa. I get to work with all of you and email you and interact with you and be a source of support for you as you work through all of these things, these first 2 years of being an advisor. Always feel free to reach out to me. I served as an advisor for 10 years as well as a regional coordinator. So I always love the opportunity to be able to interact with advisors and to helping you feel more confident in what you're doing and finding you the resources that you need as well. I have the best team at Phi Theta Kappa. I work with the student, part of the student engagement team. Dr. Blake Ellis is our Chief Engagement Officer. He couldn't be with us today. I know you've met him a couple of times before. Susan Edwards is with us today. She's our Associate Vice President of Honors Program and Undergraduate Research, and she will be doing the presentation today. Jennifer Stanford is with us. She's our Associate Vice President of Program Implementation, many years of service with Phi Theta Kappa, as well as Susan. And also Reagan Chastain is with us. She is our curriculum designer. So anytime you open up the edges or open up Advisor Edge, think Reagan. That's all of her mastery work and in support of everything that we do here on the student engagement team. And today we're really blessed, lucky to have a guest presenter. I'm so excited about this, especially when it's somebody is in the same state that I live in, which is New Jersey. So I have to woo Jersey. Anna Gergen, she is the advisor at Alpha Epsilon Phi chapter at Bergen Community College. She's been an advisor since, we just talked about that, since about 2021. And she has a really great story to share with all of you today. It's when she became an advisor. I'm kind of like going to go off from her bio a little bit. But when she became an advisor to one of the most distinguished chapters in Phi Theta Kappa, and with a long history and legacy of chapter excellence, and an award-winning chapter, and a very highly engaged chapter. And then to come into that situation and being confident and knowing how you're going to maintain the legacy of the chapter is really something phenomenal. So we are really grateful for Anna to take this moment to be with you and to share her experience along with Susan. And how to get started, and using her experiences as an advisor, using those strategies that she implemented. She's made herself, she's done some presentations for the Middle States region recently, and from all that I hear, it was an outstanding presentation and something that we really wanted to have her on board today for. So what I'm going to do is just stop talking and advance slides and turn it over to Susan and Anna for Honors in Action 101.
Thank you, Patty. And let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I know that some of you who are with us, or some of you who maybe listen to this recording, have heard some of this before, but we all know that sometimes just hearing it again once or twice really helps to take hold. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about Honors in Action basics. Honors in Action helps Phi Theta Kappa fulfill the second part of its mission to provide opportunities for college students to grow as scholars and leaders. And sometimes just if you keep that in mind and you share that with your students, they're always thinking about, okay, these are opportunities for us to grow as scholars and leaders. Let's think about how that's happening. That can really help guide you with Honors in Action. One or two members is all it takes to get started. It is a team project, so two people can constitute a team, but we've seen over and over again that one really enthusiastic student, with an enthusiastic chapter advisor who's really interested in Honors in Action and willing to coach members through it, can really help a chapter succeed with Honors in Action. And Honors in Action has been the great equalizer for Phi Theta Kappa. There's always a myth that if you come from a really large chapter, you're in better shape. And there's no question that having a lot of members or really strong officers really can help you. But Honors in Action is all about process, and we're going to talk about that today. And so small chapters do well with Honors in Action all the time by really paying attention to the process and following it, and really laying a foundation to build upon. Patty mentioned that Anna now comes from one of the great chapters in Phi Theta Kappa, but she had to learn Honors in Action just like you're doing now. She had to figure out, well, what does this mean? How do I work with this chapter? How do we build on that foundation? How do we maintain our 5-star status? Because if you work with Honors in Action and you follow the process, and submit Hallmark Award entries in Honors in Action, you will earn 5-star status for your chapter. So whether or not at first you win an Honors in Action Hallmark Award, it can happen that first time, but earning 5-star status is recognition as well at the international and regional levels, and it can be really important to garnering support from your college administration. So the project itself, you can start at any time between January 1st. You want to finish by December 31st, 2022. And we always get asked, well, wait, it's now August 16th. What are we going to do? You are fine starting in August and September. We see chapters do it all the time. So don't let that stop you. Don't let that panic you. You're good. You want to start, now if you haven't started, and work with the chapter to make sure you complete the steps of the process, with the exception of writing the Hallmark Award entry by December 31st, 2022. And the Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry is due on January 18th, 2023. So you do have some time to brainstorm about it and write and edit and submit the Hallmark Award entry that will help you gain that 5-star status. So what I'd like to do next, what we'd like to do next is really have Anna come in and talk to us about what helped you as you began your Honors in Action journey as a chapter advisor and a new chapter advisor. So I'm going to turn things over to Anna.
Yes, thank you so much, Susan. Hello, everyone. Again, my name's Anna. I am the advisor for Alpha Epsilon Phi at Bergen Community College. Very, very excited to be with you here today, sharing a little bit of my experience working with HIA. Patty and Susan are right. I came into a very strong chapter already, and I was a little intimidated, but really excited. But just like all new advisors, I had to go through the 5-star training and the Research Edge and take advantage of all the resources that PTK has to offer. And in the end, I was just really excited about HIA, and I was lucky enough that, my chapter did well. We're going to be published in the Civic Scholar this year, which is very exciting. And so I'll just share a little bit first about what helped me begin my PTK journey with HIA. I think that's something that really helped me at the very beginning was that our team was pretty cohesive, pretty strong, even in the summer when we started. So we typically start HIA in the summer and continue it on into the fall. But during the spring and in the summer, we were working together to create a really strong bond with our team. And that's because of the leadership training we did, the team building exercises, and a lot of the service and fellowship events that we did as well. It was just important for us to have a strong and cohesive team so that when it came time to divide up tasks and to designate different things to different people, that we were all working really seamlessly together and having that good communication. I think another thing that really benefited us was, or a really helpful strategy was to begin our journey with the honors program guide, but also with relevant news materials. Last year, especially, our team had some very active members of the community who are passionate about many social justice issues. And so we used their passion and their involvement in what was going on in our local community as a way to start those discussions about, okay, what sort of things can we research under the previous honor study topic, and how can we apply your passions to something academic? And lastly, as I mentioned, utilizing the honors program guide, utilizing resources such as the 5-star advisor training and Research Edge definitely helped me get a better grasp on what HIA was all about. And something I wish I had known earlier is that it's really important to examine the rubric as closely as possible, because that tells you exactly what the steps are and what the process is for executing a successful HIA project.
Thanks, Anna. And I was hoping, well, I'll talk about the holistic process and then have you talk about the steps, the process itself, in honors and action. So you're going to hear us say today, and probably every time you hear about honors and action, follow the process. It's all about intentional, informed service based on an exploration of Phi Theta Kappa's honor study topic. It's a biennial topic. It changes every 2 years. We're going to talk a little bit more about the topic, but if your team, and if you coach your team to follow the process, and keep in mind that it's all about providing opportunities for college students to grow as scholars and leaders, those things together can really help guide the team. We're not expecting people to solve the problems of the world in 6 months to a year. But we are hoping that people take steps to make those kinds of things happen, that they do pieces of that with honors and action while they're developing and honing their skills. And that's what's really important. Anna mentioned following the rubric. It's in the honors program guide, pages 24 through 26. It's on the Hallmark Awards website at ptk.org. The planning rubric is the very same rubric that the judges use when they're scoring honors and action Hallmark Award entries. So it's really helpful to begin with the end in mind and to look at all the things that should go into an honors and action project as you're following that process and even beginning it, and kind of breaking that down and seeing where you're going. So the planning rubric's really important. Looking at it now, having your team look at it now, is a really important part of the process. And then keeping a journal throughout the process. It could be an online journal, it can be a shared online journal. We really encourage that chapter advisors have copies of those journals that members have, because sometimes things happen and members can sometimes come and go, or things get lost. So having you have a copy and having other members of the team have a copy or copies of the journal is really important. And sometimes people just like to keep an old scroll journal and just write with paper and ink. We actually just got back from the Honors Program Council meeting a week ago, and during the meeting this time, we actually used paper and pen and so we wrote our notes that way, and it actually was very helpful for having discussions. And then we obviously typed up from our notes what we had come up with. So keeping a journal, we have a journaling guide online at ptk.org/honors, and we have a journaling guide in the honors program guide. So there are lots of questions that the team can ask in itself and write down the answers. It's a great idea to have them keep their APA 7th edition citations. So that's not something they're looking at the very end. So as they go through the academic investigation, they've got those. and just to keep some ideas about how they're growing as scholars and leaders, and the kinds of skills they're developing and honing can be really important as well. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The Honors Program Council, specifically in the case of the journaling guide, Dr. Terry Ruckel from Pearl River Community College, we have that in the Honors Program Guide. We have that online. Please feel free to use it and share it with your team. And then the other thing I'll mention before I turn it back over to Anna is that the honors study topic is the foundation of honors in action. And so you want to help students keep that in mind while they're working on an honors in action project, that they don't want to put the cart before the horse. In other words, selecting an action before they've done the academic investigation into the honor study topic. The other thing is that you don't want the team to pick a theme and then forget that what they're really studying is the honor study topic. In the case of 2022-2023, the honor study topic is the art and science of play. So it always goes back to the honor study topic, and the theme is the lens. So let's go to the process itself, and Anna is going to talk us through the process.
Yes, thank you, Susan. We love journaling. I just wanted to mention we love journaling at our chapter too. We do it in a few different ways to keep it creative, but I think it's a really helpful strategy to keep everyone on track. I also wanted to give a quick shout out. I have some of my chapter officers with me on the Bergen PTK WebEx or Zoom rather. So I just wanted to say hello and thank you for coming to support. So yeah, I just want to share about my take on the HIA process and some of the strategies that have been helpful for me. As you can see in this graphic here, the HIA process really goes in 3 phases, the first of which is research. And the research is something that our chapter typically does over the summer and a little bit into the fall. We do spend the spring semester really focus on team building and programming. So what Susan said about it's okay to start HIA at this time, I would have to agree. That's typically how our chapter does it. So when you begin to do your research, the first thing, of course, is to study the Honors Program Guide. It has so many important resources in there, and it really provides you with some really great framework for how you can view the honors study topic and how you can view the different themes and really get the ball rolling with that. We have each chapter officer read through the honors program guide before they come to the first HIA meeting of the year. And I found that to be a very helpful strategy so that everyone's really talking on the same page and viewing the honors program, the honors study topic as the lens through which you conduct your research. The second bullet point here is to your research objectives, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. I think this is helpful because I'm sure as everyone here can relate, PTK members are very bright and very ambitious, but sometimes, it's important to rein that in just a little bit to be realistic about what can be achieved in a set time span. Next, we talk about developing the research question. And one thing I said at the Middle States Leadership Conference that I recently presented at is that the research question is going to change. That's the nature of research, right? Everyone in here has written an academic paper before. We know that the topic that we start out with is always not what we end up with, because the joy of academic research is that you get to discover new things and go down new rabbit holes. That being said, you should start off with a research question after you've set your research objectives in order to effectively carry out your academic investigation. A resource that I mentioned was really helpful for me during this process was the Research Edge, which advisors can complete. And there was a couple questions that were really helpful for our chapter in guiding the research question. So these are things that we asked our team. What do you want to find out about the research topic? What research have scholars conducted already? What remains undiscovered and new and exciting about this topic? And how readily available are the credible sources? So there's a lot of different angles that you can approach in a research question, but I think the most important thing is that everyone is excited about it and everyone is ready to dig deep, go down those rabbit holes and develop something, investigate something that's really meaningful to them. And then, of course, you are going to identify and analyze academic sources. I can't stress this enough. Utilize your research librarians on campus. They are the they have the keys to the kingdom, right? They have so much knowledge and experience to share. And it also is just great for PTK students to get more involved with the research and the library programming on campus as well. We also took our investigation as sort of a divide and conquer strategy. We definitely wanted everyone to investigate a couple of academic sources really in depth, and then they could come together and have a really informed discussion about the topic. And then developing your research conclusions. I think a question that helped frame our conclusions for me was, how did your academic research into the honor study topic help your team better understand the world? Because HIA is about academic investigation, but it's also about service. And so I think by answering that question, you begin to understand how you can use your research as a jumping off point for the service. The next phase is strategize and lead. So that's the service and action component, identifying a real world problem, think globally, act locally, right? So you want to do something that's relevant and current to everyone, but that has a particular impact in your own community, because I feel like that's something that's most meaningful and gets your PTK members excited about the action they're going to perform. Setting action and collaboration objectives, again, setting those SMART goals. And an important thing to note here is that you want to have collaborators that are both from the college as well as the community, because the rubric asks that you complete both of those things. And I just like CP, which is all about getting the college administration engaged. I feel like HIA is another great way to get the rest of your college on board with what PTK is and its power and potential. Next, we have developing a plan of action. This is unique to every chapter, so I won't, spend too much time on this, but one thing that's been helpful for us in the past is that we had a Google site, which is a personal private website that we use to post everything. And so we did post, we strategized and came up with a project timeline, and we posted that on the Google site. Identify collaborators. What I would say about this is that it's important to come to your collaboration with the mindset of the humble servant. You are not there to fix the world, as Susan said. You're just there to assist and to, provide a service, and also to learn on the ground about an issue in your community. The learning never stops with service. And then execute your plan, have fun, and document everything. Lastly, for assess and reflect, just a couple of quick thoughts. Utilize the rubric at all steps, but especially now. You want to make sure you're hitting those maximum point values for the sake of the hallmark. Of course, honors in action is valuable in its own right as a process, but if you do want to be recognized with the hallmarks, it's important that you are hitting those rubric marks. Also, that you include both quantitative and qualitative outcomes, and identify how members grew as scholars and leaders. Definitely utilize the journals that obviously you're going to be keeping along the way, and divide and conquer when you're writing up the HIA Hallmark Awards entry, just like you divided and conquered for your research. The Hallmark entry is fairly involved because it's a big project and you want to hit all the parts. So start outlining early, and something that I learned the hard way, do not ask your students to do it over the holiday break. Try to be more proactive about it than we were. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. That's always good advice to not do that over, or not expect it to happen over the holiday break as a whole. Let's go to the next slide, because both Anna and I have mentioned that the foundation of Honors in Action is the biennial honor study topic. It's this this year and next year, it's the art and science of play. And there are 7 themes from which your team can select what they would like to do. So number 1, theme 1 is the essence of play, the whole philosophical foundations of play and what that means. Theme 2 is the economics of play. What are the costs and benefits? And that's in terms of finances, but it's also in terms of psychology. What are the costs and benefits there? Systems of play, who gets to play, who gets access, how does your identity have an impact on how you get to play, or whether you get to play. Theme 4 is the architecture and design of play. And I like to tell everybody, but this is actually where we started with the Honors Program Council. The team that developed this was made up of a bunch of gamers. And so they were really interested in gaming. In fact, I just got my first 20-sided die. So I'm not a gamer, but they're convincing me that I should try it. So they were interested in the real design of play, and they meant, you know, the conceptual design of play, but also, you know, the physical side of play, the architecture. You know, why are concert halls built the way they're built, or why are playgrounds built the way they're built? Why are games built the way they are built, and how do those things work? So it can be a lot of fun, and you probably will have a lot of students who are actually interested in the architecture and design of play. Theme 5, the soul of play. You know, how does play serve as a muse for artists and artisans? A lot of artists and artisans start out playing before they become professional at what they're doing. Theme 6, nostalgia at play. We all can, we have stories related to play, or things that really resonate with us about play. And so your team may want to explore that as well. And then theme 7, play it forward. I do want to say a couple of things about this, because one of the things that we're seeing is that people are kind of looking at that and thinking it's pay it forward. It's not. The L is there in the word play. And this particular theme is all about how play inspires innovation and invention. You know, thinking someone like Thomas Edison, for example, or Madame Curie, and the kinds of people who really have changed society, but their work started as play in many ways. And so those are the themes. Your team will look at the guide, like Anna mentioned, and select one of the themes as the lens through which to study the honor study topic. Like the research or the research question, it doesn't mean that your team has to stay in that theme. And let's go to the next slide. I'm going to explain how you know when you're coaching them whether they're in the right theme. So in the honors program guide, every single theme has an introduction, has some resources that your team can use, does not have to use, but you know, feel free to coach them to look at those sources and use them. But really importantly for this process, there's an overarching question for each of the themes. For theme 3, the systems of play, for example, the question is, in what ways do one's role, identity, and access influence the experience of play? So if you're looking at team, or your team is looking at theme 3, and what's interesting them, but you know, maybe they've done some research and the whole idea of someone's role or identity or access isn't really what they're interested in. What they're interested in is, in fact, play as muse. So then you look, well, okay, you could go to theme 5, and maybe it's that they're looking at artists and artisans, or maybe they're looking at inventors or scientists, and maybe that's theme 7. But look at that overarching question. If their research in some way is answering that question, they're in the right theme. If not, they can move themes. That's a perfectly legitimate thing to do. Chapters do it all the time. And you know, they can write in their journals what they found and why they changed. And that's perfectly legitimate. So let's go to the next slide, please. And Anna mentioned some of the questions that you can consider when your team's developing research conclusions. We know that developing research conclusions is one of the things that can be kind of difficult for teams to do, even though they're great students, even though they've got, you know, strong academic backgrounds because they're in Phi Theta Kappa, we know that. But since we also hope that they'll grow as scholars and leaders, they may need you or an assistant coach, you know, one of those collaborators to come in and really work with them to develop research questions. So here are just some questions that the teams can ask themselves. You know, what did you learn? How did your investigation answer your research question, or not? Because here is where you might discuss that you've moved, you've changed your question, you've moved themes. You know, what did varied sources contribute to what you learned, and those varied viewpoints, very helpful. What were the main points your sources made? That can be very useful when you're writing, they are writing annotations and writing about research conclusions. And then, what's the significance of the results? We aren't expecting teams to do original research, but it is going to be kind of new and original to them. So, what's the significance? How, again, going back to how did they grow as scholars and leaders, the academic investigation can help with that. And they can consider those ideas. And then, what new ideas build off the topic the team studied, because they aren't going to be able to do it all, even if you start January 1st, but they can consider as a critical thinking exercise, where could someone go? What could someone do? And then write about the fact that they did that. So developing research conclusions can put your team well ahead of teams that maybe aren't considering the kinds of questions they can write as they develop research conclusions. So I'm gonna throw it back to Anna. She's talked a little bit about this, but what strategies did you learn as a chapter advisor working with Honors in Action and coaching students? What can help new advisors to consider as they're doing the same thing?
Definitely, Susan. I mean, so many strategies, so many learning moments, coachable moments that I experienced over the last year. I've just created a short list of a couple of them that were particularly meaningful and helpful to me. The first is to document everything. I think this is really important because HIA is a very intricate and involved process, and it's easy to forget, a few weeks back we investigated this thing, or I remember when we had this communication with this collaborator. And when it comes time to write your Hallmark Awards entry, it's really, really helpful to have notes, to have photos, journals, feedback from collaborators, all of that easily accessible in one place to draw upon for your Hallmark Awards entry. I also think it's just really, when you document everything, it's meaningful for the students when they're considering, how they can draw upon this for college applications and scholarship applications. It helps them to, understand that keeping records for themselves will be very helpful for them from a professional standpoint later on. Another strategy that was really helpful for me, and I was lucky enough that we do have a pretty large officer team here at Bergen, is that we split up into subcommittees to more efficiently get work done. So we had one committee that worked. So for a little bit of background, last year our HIA project involved researching the wave of racism and hatred against the AAPI community because of COVID-19. As a result of our research, we decided to partner with the Korean Community Center in Tenafly, New Jersey, and sort of help them put together a conference around the topic of American identity for Korean immigrant women. So we had different committees do different things. We had a couple of people who came to the Korean Community Center every weekend, and they worked directly with the presenters. We had a committee that was focused on, taking notes for the write-up. We had committees early on in research like I mentioned, splitting up the research a little bit so that some people were focused on this area of the topic, some people were focused on that area. And but if you can't do committees, then I would say just, be very mindful about your time and be mindful of your students' time as well. Another thing is to embrace multiple modes of communication. This is key, especially in the COVID/post-COVID world that we're living in. If you can do things in person, great. If not, over video conferencing. We found that chat services like Slack or Discord can be very useful for real-time communication, as well as Susan mentioned, the physical notes. And in the vein of communication and record keeping, I think what we're going to do this year that we didn't do last year is that we're going to keep a log, like a running log of qualitative and quantitative outcomes of the project, both in terms of the research that we do and also the action, because it's going to help us in the Hallmark Awards entry write-up, and it's also just going to motivate our students to be excited about what they're doing and the change that they are making, no matter how big or small.
Thank you. And it's just so helpful to learn from someone who is a new advisor and working in this system and doing it really well. And so I want to do one more thing and talk about a little bit more about the rubric. And then I've got another question for you, which is probably one that everybody who's here or listening to this later probably has. So we've mentioned the rubric, both Anna and I, and how important it is to really work with it from the beginning. And I know Reagan had put the URL in, so where you can find the rubric if you haven't seen it, or the honors program guide, where you can find the rubric. But here are some things in the rubric that chapters often overlook. And so that's why we wanted to mention these things, that the emphasis on intentional research, the rubric asks about it more than once. And the key there is that it's academic research, but it's very intentional. And if you look at the wording on the rubric, the emphasis is on the intention and really considering how and why the team is doing things. So taking notes on that can be really important, because once the team gets to the action and the reflection of what actually happened for the whole project, it can be easy to forget what the intention was at the beginning. So, have your team aware of that from the beginning. And then I think Anna mentioned this, the heightened awareness of self and community in relation to global issues. The whole idea of think globally, act locally, that Anna mentioned, that most chapters do work locally, but the rubric asks specifically about that connection to global issues. So most local issues do have that connection. You can see how Anna's chapter at Bergen, they were looking at the impact that COVID had on bigotry and discrimination, and they found that connection in their own community in Tenafly. And so that can be really important to making those connections. The rubric asks for it specifically. Again, sometimes chapters miss that. And then the rubric also asked about increased appreciation for the value of informed action and as a lifelong endeavor. The rubric will ask about academic investigation or research as a lifelong endeavor, and then we'll ask about informed action as a lifelong endeavor. So asking students to really be thinking about, as they move through the process, what they're learning, how they're increasing their appreciation. And I guess what they could say is we didn't increase our appreciation at all, but they are at least addressing that and thinking about it. I hope they increase their appreciation as they do this. But just to think about that, and as they're moving along, it's easy to miss. Communication with collaborators, setting up a communication plan with collaborators. They're there certainly for you as assistant coaches, if you think of them that way, that you're looking to help students develop and hone their skills, and those assistant coaches as collaborators can help with that as well. And then collaborators should be there also to help students develop and hone their skills and enhance the project itself, that the collaborators are chosen because they connect with the research and what the team is hoping to find, or they connect in some way, like the Korean Center would have that experience with the AAPI community. And so that's how you get students connected. You want to communicate with them. And it's always really nice to have the team follow up when the project's finished, when they've done the write-up, and follow up with collaborators and thank them, of course, but also share, this is what we did, this is what we learned. Thank you for helping us do the following. And that can be really important. And I think collaborators appreciate that. And then I mentioned the idea of understanding the importance of lifelong intentional service. Notice it's actually in the rubric more than once. And then what the contributions of the team were to understanding the honor study topic. Again, not that it's original research, but what did your team learn about the honor study topic? Maybe what did collaborators learn, or the people with whom they work learn about the honor study topic, and that you want them to think about those things. And then Anna mentioned quantitative and qualitative results, and keeping track of those two things, because the rubric asks for both. So, all right, here's the question for Anna that I know I would want to know. if I were a brand new advisor, what do you know now that you've been through the process that you wish you had known as a brand new advisor?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. Uh, there's definitely a lot, but I do feel very supported by PTK and the resources that are provided on the website, as well as, chatting with other advisors and things like that. So that being said, if I could talk to my former self, from a year ago, I might say a couple of things. Having a vision is great, but it's important to be flexible. This is, of course, because research by nature is a recursive process, and you're going to go back to the same ideas and see new things in new lights every single time. But also because students, PTK members, also have a lot of really exciting creative energy, and their interests are going to drive you into new areas that you might not have expected when you first set upon the topic. So I think flexibility is something that I wish I could have coached myself on just a little bit more. Another thing is that just to follow the honors program guide and the rubric from beginning to end, not only for the sake of the Hallmark Awards that you might receive, but also just because, as Susan has mentioned, process. Well, the honors program guide and the rubric really guide you through that process from beginning to end. And so it's a great model to follow, and it's going to, serve you well in the end. Another piece of advice, there's probably a lot of faculty members in the Zoom call. I am not a faculty member. I'm a staff member at Bergen, but definitely, utilize your college librarian as much as possible, because it's a wonderful resource that is criminally underused sometimes by students, not PTK students, of course, but other students. And so it's important that you bring in college collaborators, and that's one great way to do that. Another thing is to be mindful of time and resources. HIA, as I mentioned earlier, is a very involved process, as it should be. But PTK members are students first, and they're definitely prone to burnout at times. And so especially for the people that are the chapters that are starting in the fall, like, it's definitely doable. You can definitely do it. And I'm definitely preaching to the choir here, but, just be mindful of PTK students' time and break it down into smaller steps for them as a way to model for them what effective time management looks like. And lastly, let students lead the way, because this is their project, their research, their action. But don't be afraid to help them articulate their vision. And sometimes conversations can diverge from their purpose. So it's important, for me, it was important to me that I acted as a guiding hand with the HIA process, and that I was there to support, and that I was there to counsel. And as much as I wish sometimes that I could have taken the driving wheel and gone my own way, it's really great to see how they flourish. So I would say let students lead the way, but guide them where you can.
Thank you, Anna. And Anna's absolutely right. It's a student project, but you are coaches, and we really hope you will coach students like Anna mentioned, to help them grow as scholars and leaders. And so we're moving into football season. If you're a college football fan, and I always like to say that I'll use Clemson today, because usually I use Alabama, so that all Alabama fans out there will be very happy. But I'll use Clemson, and Dabo Swinney is, the head coach, and he doesn't recruit players and then say, "Hey, I'll see you on Saturday. I know you know how to play football." Our students really do know how to do a lot of this academic work. But even college football players who are at the top schools in the nation get coached constantly before they go out on the field, and they develop skills and they hone skills that they already have. And that's what we hope for Phi Theta Kappa members, both through the Honors in Action Project and also the college project, that it's really important for us. We have a lot of resources, and Anna mentioned that, online at ptk.org/honors. The rubric is there, and I know that Reagan and Jennifer have been posting links directly to a lot of these resources. We have an Honors in Action workbook So while the honors program guide is there and it guides you through the process, the workbook is designed for students to download or print out and write in and follow the process with an actual workbook. The journaling guide is there. We have some information about developing a research question. We have an academic sources guide if students aren't quite sure what an academic source looks like. This is a great guide written by the Honors Program Council. We have film resources, and not because they're academic sources, but Anna mentioned at the very beginning of this that one of the things that she and her team do is that they have some fun too, right? You know, that, and the film resources are there. Some of them are academic sources, but a lot of them are Hollywood films or their television shows, like, for example, Stranger Things is on there, if you're a fan of that show. And so, you know, they're there for people to have, there's sort of prompts and things that people can think about the art and science of play from different angles and have some fun, or just to relax a little bit and have some fun together. And maybe, you know, maybe a discussion, maybe not, maybe pizza, maybe not. Whatever your team is really interested in doing, the film resources, it's a really wonderful guide that's there. We've mentioned Civic Scholar, Phi Theta Kappa's Journal of Undergraduate Research. The reason this is an important resource is that we always get questions, well, what does an award-winning project look like? You know, can we see one? The answer is yes. You can see them, and we have 3 issues of Civic Scholar up. The 4th issue, in which Bergen Community College chapter is going to be featured, will be up early in the fall. It's in the final editing stages. So it's a really great resource. You'll see that lots of chapters do things in different ways, but they follow the process. And you can see that from the Civic Scholar articles. The Honors Case Study Challenge, that we have a case study challenge. It's a really good way to start the process because it's using newspapers, you know, which aren't academic resources for the purposes of Honors in Action, but are great ways to figure out what's going on in the world with the art and science of play. And the case study challenge entries are due in early November. And your team or individuals on your team can earn one of 4 $500 scholarships for submitting a winning Honors Case Study Challenge. So take a look at that. And then Honors in Action grants. We have Honors in Action grants of up to $1,000 to help support your chapter's Honors in Action project. There is an application. You can go online at ptk.org/honors. The deadline is September 12th. So there is still time, and you can go in and look at the application and see what the questions are. You don't have to fill it out immediately, or you can fill it out in different stages and save it. But we'd like to help support your team's Honors in Action project. And so take a look at that. And then we've all mentioned Research Edge at getaedge.ptk.org. Having one or more members of your team go through Research Edge or going through it yourself can be really helpful in understanding the Honors in Action project. And so let's go to the next slide. Obviously, you are always welcome to ask me questions, any member of the student engagement team. Anna, who again has been through this as a new advisor and really understands the Honors in Action process. And she's a really great resource as well. But we'd like to spend a few minutes answering your questions. So what questions do you have that we can answer, or comments? Excuse me. And thank you. Yes, Jennifer mentioned that that's actually the biggest question I've been getting over the past 2 weeks. Chapter officers or advisors who are reported to headquarters can submit Honors in Action grant applications. If an officer or a member is not reported as an officer, that person won't have access to the application. So there's the grant link. And again, just you can take a look at it or report to have people who are listed as officers. If you don't have anybody listed as an officer, you still have time to report those officers and work on the Honors in Action grant application. So we hope you will do that. The Mellon Foundation has really generously given us quite a bit of money to help support your honors and action projects. And we would like to distribute all of that money.
Hey, Susan,
Yes.
one thing that I've always like to point out is that the grant application, while, you do have to have a plan for how you're going to use the money, but it's not, I know sometimes advisors, can hear grant and picture those really thick applications that are extremely time consuming and have a lot of assessment involved. And it's not quite like this. Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, it's getting you started with the process. And so the grant application does ask you about what theme your team is going to work on. It will ask you, to list members of the team. And all those things can change during the process, right? We've talked about that today. But it will ask for your information and how much the team is wanting to help support the project. And then I think it asks for 3 academic sources that are related to the theme that your team's choosing, how the team plans to use the money and the funds. There are some restrictions. It can't be used for food. It cannot be used for travel in the sense of going to conferences. It can't be used for conference registrations. We've got those listed, so take a look at that. But the great news, it can be used at any step in the process. It can be used for research so that, for example, if you find a source that's really great and you would like everyone on the team to have a copy of a book or a resource, you can use the funds for that. You can use the funds to reward collaborators, as honoraria, or to give them gifts for working with you and thanking them. You can use the funds not for things like paper and pencils and things, but you can use it for giveaways. We've had teams get t-shirts that support their project, or things they can give away to participants or people who work with them. So there are loads of ways that all points of the process that you can use the funds. And I know Bergen has earned an Honors in Action grant before. Any comments about that?
It was very helpful for us. We used it related to preparations for not a separate conference, but the conference that we put on related to American identity at KCC. And it's also just writing the grant with the chapter officers is a really great opportunity for them as well to kind of not get into the thick grants that Jennifer was talking about, but definitely get their feet wet in terms of what it's like to do a little bit of grant writing. And that's one of the things that our finance VP is really excited about this year is putting that together. So every step everything is a learning process, right? And this is part of it.
Thank you. Other questions about the Honors in Action grants, about Honors in Action in general?
Yeah, there's a question from Michael. Can grant application be submitted before the HIA plan is launched? Still in proposal stage for both HIA and grant for next semester, fall 2022.
Yes, you can. There's some steps that you do have to take, because again, you have to have some resources, you have to have a theme selected. But yeah, even if you're starting your process right now, you and your team probably know enough to write the Honors in Action grant. And so please do that. We hope that you'll do that to support it. And if you have questions about it as you and your team get in there, just email at susan.edwards@ptk.org, and I'm really happy to answer questions as you're doing the application.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to, along with all of the resources that are related directly to honors programming, the guide, and all of the things that come with it, there are other resources on ptk.org, like the activity guide for chapter leaders, There's a whole section in level 5 where it will be, activities that you can do to get started on brainstorming on what you're going to be doing and how to find collaborators. So if you're looking for activities just to get your feet wet in this, definitely look in after you read the guide. Go back to the activity guide for chapter leaders and see if there's something in that level 5 of the guide that you can help with that. In addition, the Advisor 5-star curriculum has a whole level 5 on honors in action that you can, and the honors based topic that you can go back and look at as well, and hear from other advisors. There are some best practices in there on how to get started. So I definitely encourage those along with Research Edge. I think Research Edge for me, even though it came out long after the start of Honors in Action, it was like an eye-opener for me. Like, okay, these are the questions that we need to answer, and I heard Anna talk about that. They pulled directly. We want you to use the things that are there, right? And not thinking that you have to reinvent the wheel, right? We're not looking for Nobel Peace Prize, right? Projects. That's not what this is about. This is about engaging your chapter. And the other thing that I really, really want to reinforce is that we just want you to try, right? And as you're trying, if you need some additional support or you have questions, always feel free to reach out to any of us on the student engagement team, and we're more than glad to give you that. And in addition, when you, as advisors, you can go back into the Advisor 5-star curriculum, and that is now where we're putting all of our education, right? All of these sessions, all of these PowerPoints are located in the Advisor 5-star plan. That chapter development page is going bye-bye next week, so we want you to go back and take a look at those things, and that's where you'll find all of these sessions all over again. I have to do a presentation in the Oklahoma-Arkansas region in a couple weeks, and I am definitely going to be reviewing this session again for all of the advice that Anna and Susan have given. So please don't feel that you're in a vacuum, that you don't have additional support and resources. We're here to help you get through it. We just want you to try, because we really want you to achieve that 5-star status for this year. So.
Yeah, Patty, you reminded me of two things. One that I've said recently during presentations but didn't say today. I had, for the very first time, a chapter advisor asked me last year, so does an Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry have to be good? And no one had ever asked that. Of course, the answer is no, right? That's what Patty's talking about, trying, learning to follow the rubric, learning some technical writing skills, getting something down on paper. We really want to know what students are doing. It's very exciting for us and to see the good work they're doing and the ways in which they're growing their skills. The other thing we have coming up, we're working on it right now, we'll have a Virtual Honors Institute speaker series, and one of those particular sessions will be the Honors Program Council talking about honors in action, and it is a little over an hour long, everything you wanted to know about honors in action, and that's going to be available this fall as well. So it's going to be another resource that you'll have to look at and think about, and you can watch it in stages. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah. Well, we thank you for joining us today. If there aren't any more questions, our next session with all of you under the new advisor program is next Wednesday. We're going to step away from the programming and talk about scholarships, all the scholarship opportunities now that the scholarship application has now been opened for your students, and you may have some questions about that. So Reagan will be doing a presentation on that. We're also going to talk a little bit about the benefits of being an advisor outside of all of the fun that you can have with your students, right? There are some advisor benefits that we want you to be aware of. So we do have a session tomorrow with advisors and leaders. Some of you have registered for that. It'll be similar to what we're doing now, but we're going to direct that towards our student leaders tomorrow. So you're more than welcome to join us as well. So if there isn't anything else, thank you, Anna. Thank you, Susan, as always, and to the team, and we will see you again next week. Bye-bye.